Hello, this is Kelsey Gartner again. The first time I uploaded a video to YouTube in regards to my testimony had to do with leaving the gay lifestyle and my battle between good and evil with that, particularly from the Catholic perspective. This time, this is part two of my testimony, and this one is all about my vocation story up to date. And really, what happened 4 years ago? From age 19 to 23. Um, Very critical time in my life for discernment those years. Um, and have, honestly, since 23, forever changed the course of my life. So I actually, unlike the first video where I was just speaking it and recalling it from memory, just because I already have it all typed up, I'm going to mostly be reading it from a piece of paper. All true, even if it doesn't seem like I'm meaning what I'm saying. It's only, and I can still sound like that, but it's only because I want to stay focused on, like, getting to the point, because it too is a long story. Um, One that I could never make up myself. Just living it, I guess. So, I'm going to start from being at KU, because that's kind of where I left off, was going on that retreat and the Lord pulling me out of the gay lifestyle. Then, okay, so after this retreat, I got into some good Christian counseling and started attending daily Mass. Around this time, I really truly fell in love with the Eucharist, and I got into spiritual direction with a really cool sister in the Apostles of the Interior Life, which is an order that is in Kansas and other places, but one that had actually like come into my life, and just like found myself with them in my life. Um, so, anyways, one day she asked me if I had started discerning my vocation. And again, this is when I was 19 years old, at the University of Kansas. So, like 8 years ago. Um, I didn't really know what that was. And so she really openly and briefly explained the options, saying that it would be a good idea to pray about and see which direction the Lord is leading me. Um, yeah, so like marriage and family life, to become a sister or a priest, some kind of monastic life, or I guess consecrated virginity. So I'll just explain what the different vocations are, because I really didn't know. So around the same time, through a friendship with a really awesome mentor, I started sensing Saint Therese of Lisieux proceed and seek friendship with me. I decided I would pray my very first novena on my own, through her intercession, to start discerning my vocation. I asked for a white rose if I was called to marriage in the flesh, which I had come to desire, which was a miracle in and of itself, or a red rose if by chance I happened to be called to religious life. I love this story. Um, I love it. And that's like a common thing that people will do. If you're not Catholic and you're watching this, or even Christian, let me explain what a novena is real quick, and why I asked Saint Therese. I asked Saint Therese because she oftentimes would help answer people's prayers through sending them a rose, of a particular color, to discern like this or that. And a novena is a 9-day prayer. You pray it for 9 days in a row, and you're asking for the intercession of a saint. So a saint is someone who's already living in heaven, and we believe their prayers are especially powerful because they're in heaven, so close to God. And we can be close to him too, but it's just a different dimension. So we ask for them to pray to God with us, essentially. So it's not just like treating them as God, but asking for them to pray with us to God for this particular thing. And God can use whoever he wants to, however he wants to answer prayers. Anyways, that's what a novena is. Very powerful form of prayer. People do it all the time when trying to discern things on jobs or relationships, just big decisions. A lot of people will often turn towards a novena. Or if they feel really desperate, like, how can I possibly help the situation? Someone will turn to a novena. Anyways, moving forward. So day 9 rolled around on this novena, and I didn't seem to have an answer. There was no physical rose, and I figured going to a formal with a good guy friend was the perfect chance to get one, because I was going on a formal with a good guy friend. And still, I did not, and I was left lost and confused. The next day was a retreat the Sisters of the Apostles of the Interior Life at KU were putting on. And let me just real quick preface this by saying, no, I don't feel called to be a sister with the Apostles of the Interior Life, but they had a critical part in my vocation story and just in my Catholic formation as a young adult. So it was a silent retreat that started with Mass, and later in the day that you could sign up for spiritual direction. During Mass, I received the Eucharist and felt such desolation inside of me. Confused as to why God hadn't answered my prayer, feeling like he had forgotten about me, but knowing deep down that he could never, ever do that. I knew Jesus was inside of me when I received this Eucharist, but I could not feel his love at all. I looked up, and next to the altar was a picture of Mary holding baby Jesus in that St. Lawrence Center chapel. Seeing this photo of her maternal love stirred my heart so much. Like I said, I felt very dry thinking about Jesus, but when I looked at this image of Mary, oh my gosh, it was, I just remember my heart waking up and something stirring inside of me and anyways, yeah. So while I knew that was a good thing, and this kind of touches on like my healing journey and like, yeah. While I knew this was a good thing, I felt it was so off that I could feel her love, but not the love of Jesus. Her love for me was illuminating gaps where Jesus' love still needed to reach and be. So I knew I was having trouble relating to Christ and his masculinity. Yeah. So that had to do with like truly the Lord showing me. Anyways, I'll get to it. Yeah, okay. Focusing. I went along to spiritual direction that day and told the sister that I didn't get an answer to my novena and could not understand why. I also told her, oh yeah, this happened at Mass today. And she looked at me and told me, you totally received your flower answer. I was completely dumbfounded and asked, how could that possibly be? She then asked me, did you know Mary is known as Mystical Rose? I said, no, I've never heard that. I had no idea. She said I didn't need a physical flower because God could be wanting to wean me off baby food. Like, there could have been a deeper spiritual message hiding within all of this. She said this is what it sounded like, that Saint Therese put me in Mary's arms to put me back into Jesus's arms to show me my great need for him in the healing of my heart. So that was very much, Mary fulfilling her role as always bringing us closer to Jesus, her son, which is exactly why Jesus gave his mom to us, is to bring us closer to him through her feminine love, through her intercession. So yeah, I thought it all made sense. And when praying about it, I realized this was for my needs specifically as divine physician. I felt Jesus convey the message, yes, this is the answer for you, and your vocation right now is primarily to heal. That's what I was being called to through this. Don't worry, I get more into like which this or that, but that was, remember, this is a 4-year period. And so he was just like, I really want your eyes to stay fixed on me. And at the right time, I'll point you which way you're supposed to go. So just this like letting go and releasing, like, okay, this main answer is like healing, not necessarily which one. But it was good to start thinking about it and praying about it because I never had. I knew that I wasn't single, which I needed to know because in high school, I went from relationship to relationship to relationship. I did that hopping, I needed to know that I was taken by him and he could fulfill that place inside of my heart. Because God is not just our father. He wants to be our lover too. And that doesn't mean you're going to become a nun or a priest, marriage to God in that formal, sense of vows. But he really wants to be all things to us. Father, brother, lover. Like God is in love with us. And that's pretty much what the Bible says. Like that's like the whole point of the Bible, that God wants to marry us. And that's what he does during the Eucharist. So we become one with him. Okay, back to the story. I took that healing very seriously, including doing an internship at Desert Stream Ministries, which is an ecumenical emotional healing ministry that leads and equips lay people to do Living Waters inner healing groups, where they put a huge focus on listening, prayer, testimony, and teaching. By the way, if that stands out to you at all, hit me up and I will totally send you like the website information to find groups local to you. They are in the whole world, all over the US, like, and they're not for any particular wound. They absolutely help people with same-sex attraction. However, their whole mission is to restore relational and sexual integrity. So every person in one way or another has a relationship breakdown in their life, and sexual brokenness. And so that literally applies to everyone. So all kinds of people benefit from this ministry. They also happen to totally know what they're doing with people with same-sex attraction. So like I said, hit me up. I can send you the website. They have a map of all the locations of this group. There are several in Kansas, and they're also in Protestant churches and Catholic churches. So seriously, let me know. I can give you the info. You will find information there. Good timing. This is the manual. Very thick. I haven't read it all. It's actually pretty big print. But this is what you get when you go through a group. And what's amazing about this is that the founder of Desert Stream Ministries, he actually started this ministry like, I want to say like around 30 years ago, probably more than that. In I think it's Anaheim, California, or Los Angeles, California, the West Coast. And he moved here. The headquarters are actually in Grandview, Missouri, even though this is an international ministry. It's amazing what God's done with it. But anyways, he converted to Catholicism several years ago, and his family isn't, but he converted. And so he re-updated this manual since these groups have been around for so many years since he started the ministry. What's amazing about this manual is it actually has saint quotes. It references the sacraments. It references Mary. Catholic theology is within this, while at the same time, it's totally like psychology healing, because and I promise I'm going to get back to my story, but I'm just going to tell you what like the chapters are pretty much called in here, so you can get an idea of why I love this manual so much. It talks about divine mercy and these beautiful Catholic teachings mixed in with emotional health. So let me just say, acknowledging our need, becoming responsive to the Father's love. I should probably read that one again. The fighting Father. So good. Revealing Christ through the gift of our bodies. Cross and confession, restoring the true image of God in humanity. Renouncing idols. Overcoming addiction through the real meal. Holla. How wounds can make us more whole. Identifying brokenness and resuming the journey. Restoring broken boundaries. Huge. The true self forgives. The true self aspires to wholeness and refuses despair. The true self unites with God in weakness and overcomes narcissism. The true self loves his or her gender. So that's like huge for people who struggle with like gender dysphoria. They help so many people, you guys. Offering the gift, restoring woman's honor, restoring man's honor. So if you've come to like hate men or hate women, this is healing for that. For the bride, and hope and wholeness. So there you go. You know, I have an idea of why I'm so into this ministry that's ecumenical. Brings Catholics and Protestants together too, which is fantastic. Okay, so back to my story. Right, so that was my little, not just plug for, but like I legit want people to know this exists and is out there and is amazing. Like, so good. I don't work for them. I was not paid or, you know, even asked to do that. But I just want to say, hey, this is a resource and it's incredible and more people should know about it. Particularly Catholics. Okay, back to my thing. So it was here that I learned how to listen to God's voice, okay? It took me a long time of practice to start to believe that he was speaking so easily to me, that he actually wanted to. It was through, I literally learned how to listen in prayer, you guys, in a way that I'd never known how to before. Through this ministry, they are amazing at hearing the voice of God and really teach you. Like that was where I practically got practice with that. And who doesn't want to hear God's voice? Like if you love him and, you know, like, yeah. And then I also learned how to do that through a really awesome Christian counselor. We would pray and wait and listen on the Lord as well, in a very particular way, um, with Emmanuel prayer. And so, anyways, if you really struggle to listen to God, I really recommend Desert Stream. Even if you solely go for that reason, just to learn how to listen to God better. I'm telling you, I promise you it works and you will hear him more clear. Um, yeah, just like on truly in Protestant realms. Like, I'm not gonna lie and say that a lot of things that have drawn me closer to God have been in the Protestant world. They totally have. So, um, I want to share a Bible verse, John chapter 10, verse 27. My sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me. So I ended up helping to write a book and travel and speaking, all while still receiving my own inner healing. It was a dream. Like, only God could give something like that. And I miss those days. I want to travel and speak more. Yeah. So if you ever, want a witness of healing from same-sex attraction or a vocation story, I guess, hit me up. Okay. Because I've done a lot of that and I'm always looking, places or areas that I can do more of that. So, between good friendship, willing the good of the other, virtuous friendship, not just like, let's just hang out and have a good time together, but like true friendship. Between that, my family, particularly my mother, the sacraments, and these groups, I was starting to really heal. So fast forward from my freshman year of college to, hold up, 5 years. 4 or 5 years later, um, my mom's good friend moved in with us, and I'm going to give her a pseudonym because I have not asked her permission if I can share her name in this, just like I did with the sister. Um, and I think my other friend would allow me to say their name, but I'm going to call her, watch me slip up and actually say it. I am going to call her Elizabeth. And her name is not Elizabeth, but I'm going to call her that. And then for my other friend, I should have thought about this beforehand, but I did not. I am going to, I really think she won't mind sharing her name. Ah, but just in case, I'm going to call her Aubrey. This is hard, but okay. Elizabeth and Aubrey. Um, okay. So my mom's good friend, Elizabeth, moved in with us temporarily and became, in a way, like a big sisterly figure that I never had. Aunt, whatever you want to call it. It felt like sisters because she was so fun and hilarious to laugh with. Um, I started going to school online to study the degree that I got, and I felt like around that same time, Jesus was telling me I could start intentionally discerning my vocation again and that I was ready for that. So I figured St. Therese had my back the first time around, so she'll probably have it again. I repeated the exact same novena that I had prayed, asking for a white rose if called to marriage and family life, and a red one if called to the religious life. Day 9, I was at daily mass at Ascension. At one point, I looked up at the altar and there was a giant vase. This is one of my favorite parts, of pink roses. I knew it was my answer, but I didn't take it to my spiritual director. I just interpreted it by myself, which was a mistake. I figured it meant I was called to marriage and family life and it would just become like best friends with all the priests and nuns, and it'd be like being Catholic Hannah Montana and having the best of both worlds. I had joy with this, and peace with it too, but eventually that peace started fading, and that really scared me. Fast forward to a few months ago, I wrote this a long time ago. Fast forward to the week of March 10th, 2016 of the Year of Mercy. That Monday, I'd gone to noon mass, and afterwards, a woman that I had never met before in my life tapped me on the shoulder. I looked over my shoulder kindly and confused, and she said, "Hi, I just wanted to let you know that you have a very beautiful smile." which is not the first time that's happened at Mass. So I think Jesus like shines beauty out through um, receiving the Eucharist. But yeah. Um, and so I thanked her. Then she asked me if I was going to be a sister. Again, I've never met her before. I said, no, I don't think so. I think it's beautiful, but I don't think that's what I want. She said, oh, okay. I just saw you had a Theology of the Body book sitting next to you in your pew. And I said, yeah, I mean, I'm studying and getting my degree in theology right now and really love it actually, but I don't think I'm called to the religious life. She said, oh, okay, and kind of just walked off. So like I said, at this point, I was pretty convinced that I was called to marriage. So I thought that encounter was very weird. And although she was sweet, I was very angry because I was wrestling with Jesus tugging on my heart. And I don't feel that same, like, wrestling since then. But I just remember it was very distressing at the time. Later that week, it was Thursday, and this was actually March 10th, in the Luminous Mysteries of the Rosary, because Thursdays are the Luminous Mysteries of the Rosary. This is so cool how God put all this together. I went to confession and then noon Mass and was planning to visit one of my best friends, Aubrey, after Mass, and we were planning on chatting and praying the Rosary together. I got there and she suggested we go outside on the hill in her apartment's backyard, since it was just a beautiful day out. We did. We sat down and started praying. I pulled the necklace out of my pocket that I wear daily, but that I couldn't wear for weeks because of a bunch of knots in the string. And while praying, all the knots practically just worked their way out. I love sharing this because God speaks to me, like sharing it again. Each time I share it, he speaks. So anyways, I was stunned and emotionally pleased due to Mary, Our Lady, and Doer of Knots. We both have a devotion to her. Our moms prayed novenas to her when we were in high school, and we both got out of bad relationships that we were in that were very ungodly. And like, yeah. So we knew she was there with us. We had no doubt. We got through 2 decades, and Aubrey said she had to go to work. So she got in her car and left, and we planned on finishing our rosaries on our own. I got in my car to leave and drove past the cemetery where my grandma is buried at. And I always say it's like Jesus took the steering wheel from my hands because I did a U-turn and found myself parked down by her grave. All the while realizing that day that I was wearing her shirt, earrings, and jewelry that day. These were actually the earrings, so that's hilarious. There's a visual that happened that I'm going to explain in detail, and what I'm going to do is somehow put it into this video so that you can see it. Okay. I thought this meant, okay, then that must really be meant to be. I'm like wearing all her stuff today. What are the odds? I got out of my car and I went down to the grave and I started speaking to her things like, I love you. I miss you, Grandma. Please keep praying for our family. We really, really need it. Then I said, you know what, Grandma? I need to finish my rosary today, and there's no one here, and we really never did that together when you were alive, and I'd really like to do that now. Will you please do that with me? I'm convinced she did. So here's another witness of the communion of saints and asking those in heaven to intercede with you to God, and it not being worship or anything like that, or, whatever, or like conjuring, dead spirits. It's not like that. I believe that God allows a relationship with our loved ones to never end because he offers abundant life, and those who die and are with him are alive and not dead anymore. So I'm convinced my grandma did pray with me. While praying, God worked my distraction for good. I took off my earrings and necklace and set them on her tomb. No, I took off my earrings and bracelet, that was a typo, and set them on her tomb, thinking it'd be artsy to take a photo of them on there since I like photography. Not a professional, but I love photography. I did that, and the craziest thing came out of the picture. In the bracelet that has virtues on stones with jewels shined an amazing supernatural looking light. I can't make this stuff up. When I zoomed in on this light, it looked like none other than Jesus and the monstrance. So if somehow I get you this image connected to this video, pause, take a screenshot of it, and zoom in where the twinkling light is, and see if you recognize like a monstrance from Eucharistic adoration. I was stunned and I tried taking another photo like this, and of course, nothing of the same nature came out. So I don't think it was really me who took the picture. This was such an experience of the communion of saints. Finally, I got through all decades of the rosary besides the fifth. I prayed and I felt very close to my grandma, obviously, just from being there and her jewelry and that image that came out. I was like, duh. I felt very close to her and to Mary. So close to Mary that I felt I was in a dialogue with her in my heart. She started asking me questions and asked me what I learned about her back in February when I learned about theology of the body in Pennsylvania. I told her I learned that she had all the vocations in one because she was a spiritual mother to all the disciples, a biological mother to Jesus, and had a pure eros love for Joseph. Passionate relationship, but was not sexual with him. Yeah. And also, obviously she was a perpetual virgin. It was what I believed through my faith. So I never knew that she had all the vocations in one, like I had learned there. And so this was a new revelation to me. She then asked me what my novena answer was this past fall. And I was like, well, 2 in 1, because red and white make pink. And that was the color of the roses. So she was nudging me to ask Jesus exactly what he wanted from me. Like this was the moment. She told me she was near and thought I was ready, and if I thought I was, I should just ask him here and now. So I said, and again, I'm at this still, quiet, peaceful cemetery. And I just was like, Jesus, are you asking me to be a virgin for you forever? It was then this calm, still, quiet cemetery came to life. The wind started howling. I saw about 14 geese, I counted, flying over me into the distance, which is a significant spiritual number for me because it's the number of the koinonia that I went on at KU, and because my confirmation saint, Maria Gredi, was stabbed 14 times and died a martyr for purity. And she gave her attacker, after she died, she appeared to him in a dream and gave him 14 white lily flowers. So anyways, 14 birds. And so, like I said, this nature picks up and I'm just like, what is going on? Like I just asked this question and then nature just started like flipping out. And so I really knew deep in my spirit that Jesus was saying, yes, this is exactly what I want from you. One moment. I was so overwhelmed, I didn't know what to do with myself. My first thought felt like part of the Annunciation and asking, how can this be? Then realized it was for the exact opposite reason Mary said it. Mary said it because she wasn't planning on having relations with a man, and I said it because I was planning on having relations with a man. It also felt like the agony in the garden because I was overcome with waves of fear, dread, and agony and anxiety that felt like they would overtake me. Yet I knew, not my will, but yours be done. I needed to share this with somebody, so I got in my car and drove away, calling all my friends I knew who were open to discerning religious life and my spiritual director, and no one picked up. I felt the Holy Spirit prompt me to call Aubrey, and I told her what happened. She was overwhelmed with joy and peace, and I was very anxious. I got to my house and put her on speakerphone, and my mom walked in the kitchen, overhearing Aubrey say, "All right, well, let me know what your mom says." And I hung up. My mom asked, "What's going on?" All she had to do was look at me, and I just completely lost it. She came over to ask what was wrong, and I could hardly speak. I don't know if I'd cried harder in my life, and I've cried a lot of tears in my life. And at this point, this was before my dad passed, I threw myself onto her, sobbing, and the only words I could get out of my mouth were, "Grandma, a nun." I told her what happened, realizing it happened at the cemetery because I was dying to self, and she said, "You should sit down." I sat down, and she said, "I really need to tell you something, and I really hope now is the right time." So I'm thinking, lay it on me. There can't possibly be any more surprises coming my way today. And when I met, like when I said a nun, like grandma, a nun, it was like this. Basically, when I said a nun, I meant like a virgin forever, was like what I was thinking on the inside. So she asked if I remembered going to um, this sister's vows that past December when she became a sister. And I said, yeah, of course, it was beautiful. I was singing in the choir. She started to break down and started crying. She said, well, when she crossed over from her family's side to the sister's side, the Lord told me that was going to be you someday. I was stunned. I asked, you mean to tell me you've known my vocation for 4 months and haven't said anything to me? She said, yeah. She said she knew if she told me I'd resist it and it'd have to come from Jesus. And she's right. Because, moms have a way of saying something and a kid just not wanting to listen because it's their mom telling them. And I had already done that like a ton in high school. So she was like, it's got to come from you, Lord. And so, yeah. And my thought now is that, it was going to be a ceremony of me marrying Jesus that she was hearing the Lord say was going to happen someday. So she also said I should call. Shoot, what did I say her name was earlier? The woman who moved in with us. Crap. What did I say her name was? Okay, well, I'm going to change her name again and just call her Angelina. So she also was like, you should call Angelina, who 2 weeks previous to this day said, honey, the Lord revealed something to me and he's going to reveal it to you too. And when he does, you should come talk to me. And it is not every day you hear that. I was paranoid about that and I insisted she'd tell me. But she said it had to come from Jesus. I called and I told her that day. And I told her I think I had an inkling of what she was talking about. And she was like, oh, really? You think you know? And I was like, I mean, I think I do. She said, I'm just going to tell you now. She said, Jesus gave me a ring to give you because he wants to marry you. I said, shut up. And she was like, no, I'm serious. I'm going to give it to you when I get home from work tonight. I then got off the phone and did my homework, which just so happened to be to read and summarize the play that John Paul II wrote called The Jeweler's Shop. My grandma made jewelry, and it was at her grave the light shined out of the jewel on the bracelet earlier this same day. And the play was all about marriage, of course. While doing this, I was blaring Celine Dion in my living room, blissfully dancing with Jesus. He was showing me his grace is enough. Once I'd cried out all those feelings of fear and sorrow on my mom, it was as if waves of joy and peace just flooded my soul, and I didn't even know a level of interior freedom like that existed. I was so high and intoxicated. It was amazing. Kirsten, Angelina, I knew that was going to happen, came and sat next to me, telling me to open my hand. She placed the ring in it, closed up my hand, wrapping my fingers around it, and said, look at it. It was seriously like a classic proposal because I was seriously like, I can't look. I can't look. Yeah. But when I did look, I saw a plain wedding band. Then she said she needed to tell me a story and started tearing up. She said her husband came up to her and said, honey, this ring's for you, but it's not for you. He found it. She prayed about it and was like, Lord, why do I have this ring? He said, and so she proceeded to tell me her conversation with the Lord after this and that he was telling her, oh, that's for Kelsey. And so she started putting the pieces together of me having a vocation to celibacy, virginity, because she was also starting to get close to me and just felt like, I don't know, like God, what she said was that God had a big call on your life. She said she argued with God and was like, come on, Jesus, you have to have a better ring than that if you're going to marry her. And after they went in circles, Jesus finally said, The reason why it's a plain wedding band is because she's the jewel. I knew Jesus had a crush on me, but I did not know it was that big. How redeeming that God would use a woman to put a ring upon my finger to get engaged to him. And what a sneaky bridegroom. My whole household knew I was being proposed to before I did. My mom came in the living room and said it all made sense. So notice the theme of jewel throughout all of that. It was more than obvious to me. My mom came in the living room and said it all made sense. When I was 6 years old, I asked her, Mommy, if Jesus asked you to sacrifice me, would you? She said, and when I was 8 years old, I asked her, if it is really Jesus in the Eucharist, are we like eating Jesus' skin? Both questions she didn't know how to answer, and when she answered the second question with disbelief, I defended the truth. After researching herself, she realized her 8-year-old daughter was right, and she thought it made sense because she knew that I was always different. That's what she said. And by sacrifice, we realized that meant like she would never be a grandmother if I never had children. Now I want this calling. I'm in love with Jesus and can now see the charism of spiritual motherhood that I have. And I have the grace to feel like I don't need to get married or have kids. I'm living proof that Jesus makes all things new, just like he told his mother, Behold, I make all things new. Later he told me I'm not just this jewel, but a sapphire jewel, which is my birthstone. I was born in September on the feast day of Mary's most holy name for a reason. He said I'm a sapphire because I radiate a unique light. This is the message I got, a unique blue light that is part of my vocation, specifically tied to the charism of virginity. I want to radiate this light in all I say and do for the rest of my life. So, with the roses being pink, and it not being marriage and family life or to be a nun, that makes me feel, and for other reasons, that really leads me towards consecrated virginity because red and white, as I had realized, make pink. So when you mix the two, what do you get? And so to me, consecrated virginity just makes the most sense and is something that I desire over religious life. So pray for me. Thank you for listening to my story. That is my testimony part 2, which is my vocation story. Yeah, thank you for watching.